Hi there, and welcome to Healthy Helpings. My name's Michelle. This week we're going to do something a bit different. We're going to do an episode that's specially for kids. This was inspired by some great feedback from the guys over at gnmparent.com, which are our sister channel to gnmhealth.com. Now what we're going to do this week is something that is really simple that you can get in the kitchen with your kids and get them experimenting, trying different flavours. And what I've tried to do is make it as colourful and as exciting as possible, and something where they might be able to learn a little bit about food and then might discover something new. So let's get started. So what I've got on the menu for today is a couple of different marinades for some meat, and what we're going to do is then combine that with an assortment of vegetables and put that onto some skewers and either put them under the grill, under the broiler, or take them out onto the barbecue grill. So to start off with our first marinade, in this bowl here I've got some ketchup manis, which is Indonesian sweet soy sauce. I've got about 2 tablespoons of that. I've also put 1 teaspoon of low-fat peanut butter in there and half a teaspoon of grated ginger already. Now to that I'm also going to add 1 clove of garlic, which I've already chopped finely. And I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of lime juice. Now normally I'd use fresh lime, and I thought I had one in the fridge, but when I went to have a look, no luck, so I'm using lime concentrate instead. So once you've got all that in there, what you're going to do is just going to mix that round. Now that should be a flavour that most kids are pretty happy with, and adding the lime juice is just going to break down a little bit of the meat, so it's going to go nice and tender. Now you could leave this as a marinade as it is, or I'm going to put just half a teaspoon of this sambalolek, which is a chili paste basically. It's got a few other things in it, but that again, that's a very common Southeast Asian flavour, and I'm just going to add that in. Now it's a lot milder than using fresh chopped chilies. If you like hot things and your kids like hot things, you might want to put half fresh chopped chilli in there instead, or maybe even a little bit more of that, but that shouldn't be too offensive to anyone's palate. Okay, so we've got that there. Now I've just got some diced up chicken. Now your kids can mix this up. You might need to help them depending on how old they are with chopping up the chicken, or your butcher might actually do that for you. So I've got a couple of chicken fillets there. I'm just going to mix that round. Now you could leave that to sit in the fridge for a little bit, and I'm just going to leave that sit while I show you the other marinade. The flavours will go through that a little bit more, but you're good to go with that right now as it is. So I'm just going to put that to one side and show you my second marinade. Now that, before I go on though, that makes a fantastic stir-fry sauce as well. So you could do the meat like that and then chuck it in a wok with a whole stack of veggies and just toss it up really quick. Alright, let's move on to our second marinade. I've got a tablespoon of olive oil here and half a tablespoon of red wine vinegar. Now I really like red wine vinegar, but it's quite hard to find a good one. So have a bit of a shop around and taste the different ones out there. You might also want to use sherry vinegar instead. Okay, so I've got that in there. I'm going to add a clove of garlic to that, and some chopped up fresh oregano, or oregano, whatever you call it. You could use dried oregano if you couldn't get it, but I'm using a lot of fresh herbs today. I think that's a great thing. All these fresh herbs that come from our garden, and I think it would be a great thing if you had kids to plant some herbs out in your garden, or even if you live in an apartment off the ground, you can get window boxes and plant your herbs in there. It's a great way for them to explore flavours and also feel rewarded for stuff that they grow. So maybe give that a shot once the weather warms up if you're in the northern hemisphere. Of course, if you're in the southern hemisphere right now, it's the perfect time to be doing it. Okay, so to that I'm adding the juice of half a lemon. I'm using some beef fillet. Now that's a very quick cooking cut of meat. I originally wanted to use some lamb fillet or lamb backstrap, but my butcher had sold out, and also that's quite expensive in some countries, so this would be your alternative. You could either get beef fillet or some beef scotch fillet, or sirloin, and just cut it up into these little cubes about that big. I'm just going to mix that round. Now I'm just going to add some salt and some black pepper, and that's that sorted. Okay, so when you're doing skewers or kebabs, whatever you're going to call them, it's a good idea if you're using wooden skewers to soak them for half an hour beforehand. So just over in the sink here, I've had mine soaking. I'm going to grab them. Now what that's going to do is it's going to stop them from burning when you're cooking. Okay, so over here I've got this plate and it's beautifully colourful. I've got some red capsicum or red bell pepper. I've got yellow capsicum or yellow bell pepper. I've got some zucchini or courgette, which I pulled straight from our garden, along with some little baby cherry tomatoes, also straight from our veggie patch, and some baby bocconcini. Now they're kind of like little mozzarella balls, I guess. Now if you're watching your fat, you might want to skip on those, but a lot of people don't get enough calcium, and if you've got growing kids, it's really important that they get enough calcium for their bones and stuff like that. So you could use baby bocconcini. If you're doing it with lamb, it would be absolutely beautiful if you used halloumi, which is a slightly salty Greek cheese. It's quite dense as well, but it's a fresh cheese. Or of course you could use a low fat or a regular feta cheese as well. Okay, so to go with my meat, I'm just going to grab, with my beef, I'm going to grab a little bit of beef and skewer that on, and then just thread on a piece of that bocconcini. Now I remember always doing this before we go, have big family meals, big cookout barbecues. Always helping out the family put these skewers together, and it's great because I got to choose kind of what went on there. Don't limit yourself to the vegetables I've got here. Some what would be good? Some eggplant might be nice, or those little yellow acorn squash, I think they're called. They'd be fantastic too. Okay, so I'm just threading 2 of each thing on here. Okay, so that's beautifully colourful, and kids love small things that they can eat with their hands and stuff like that. So I mean, you can't get nicer than that. Now we're just going to repeat that and using this chicken instead. Now I've chosen to use chicken thigh just because I like the texture a little bit more. It does have a few more calories in it though, so you might want to use chicken breast instead. It's entirely up to you. So I'm just going to alternate between all these different veggies. Now you could use tofu as well with this marinade and it'd be absolutely delicious. Just make sure you get a firm tofu, one that, it might say stir fry tofu on it as well, and that's probably the best kind of tofu to get. Now of these 2 marinades that you've got, if you're doing low carb, you obviously want to lean towards the one that I did for the beef or the lamb. There's a little bit of sugar and stuff like that you'll find in the Asian style marinade. Both of them are reasonably low calories, and having marinades is a great way to spice up any meal, whether you're doing it as a stir fry or you're even roasting a big piece of meat. So to go along with this, I've chopped up some cilantro and some mint, and I'm going to make a bit of a dipping sauce to go with it. So I've got those chopped up here in the bowl. I'm just going to grab out of my fridge a couple of tablespoons of low-fat European style yogurt. I probably had about half a tablespoon of cilantro or coriander and half a tablespoon of chopped up mint, and I'm just going to put in maybe a quarter of a teaspoon, just a tiny splash, a few drops there of the lime juice, and just mix that round. Okay, so just when you thought I couldn't take this stick caper any further, what I've got now is a dessert as well. Now trying to get your kids to eat fruit, sometimes they'll do it and sometimes they won't. Now I reckon if you make them into little bite-sized pieces though, it's going to be a bit more interesting, and this will just bring out a really nice sweet flavour the way I'm going to do it. I've got here some diced up pineapple and some diced up banana. Now if it's the middle of winter where you are, you might have trouble getting the pineapple, so you could always use tinned pineapple chunks. Just make sure that they're in their natural juices and there's no extra added sugar and stuff if you're worried about carbs and calories. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to alternate threading bits of pineapple on here. On this plate here, I've just mixed together a little bit of, I've mixed in a kind of a 3-to-1 ratio, some shredded coconut and some almond meal. And I'm just going to get my skewer and just lightly dust it in it. It doesn't really have to cover it too much. Okay, so the way I see it, you've got 3 different ways of cooking it. Probably the most kid-safe one is just putting it in under the overhead grill or overhead broiler, whatever you call it, where you are, and just pulling it out every few minutes and just giving it a quick turn and brushing on the leftover marinade. Now, otherwise you can use a stovetop griddle pan, or what I'm going to do today, I'm going to take this outside because it's the middle of summer here in Australia, and it's a bit of an Australian tradition, so we're going to take it out and put it on the barbecue grill. While you're grilling them or putting them under the broiler, then you're just going to use a brush and just baste them as you turn them. So just paint on that extra marinade onto the rest of the veggies and back onto the meat again. Okay, so now it's all cooked. Let's have a taste test. I've already been nibbling at this banana and pineapple one, and it's delicious. The coconut on the almond on the outside has just added a beautiful tropical flavour, and I don't normally like this kind of thing, but I really like this time, so. Alright, now I had a bit of trouble with the cheese, as you would have seen cooking there. You're probably better off using halloumi than bocconcini, but I managed to keep it all together in the end. Moving it to a flat part of the grill worked best. But the marinade's delicious on there. I'll just slide off. And because I use the beef fillet, I only needed to cook it for a couple of minutes for it to cook right through. So that meat's just beautifully tender. I only got about 2-3 minutes on each side. And you can see there the cheese has gone beautifully crispy on the outside and delicious. It actually stuck to that bell pepper. Let's try a little bit here in some of the dipping sauce. That's beautifully refreshing. I really recommend that you do that when you put this together. And again, the chicken didn't take too long to cook, a little bit longer than the beef did. But that's alright because it didn't have any cheese on it, so I didn't have to worry so much about the cheese melting. You can taste the sweetness of that ketchup mayonnaise and then a little bit of that peanut coming through. And I think that's a flavour that all kids are going to like. There you go, a beautiful and delicious meal that's colourful and exciting. You don't have to have kids to enjoy it, but it's something they can throw together. Now remember, you can include whatever vegetables and whatever meat you want. Just a few tips for the marinades that were in there, and it'll be a delicious meal for all the family that's simple to throw together and everyone can get involved in. So that about wraps it up. Don't forget to check out healthyhelpingstv.com and you'll be able to find all sorts of other great episodes and recipes on there. I can recommend episode 1 for families. It'd be great for throwing some chicken burgers together. It's something the kids can get their hands into. And if you've got kids, you might want to check out gnmparent.com for other content to do with families and parenting. And don't forget gnmhealth.com for health, fitness and lifestyle pod and vodcasts. My name is Michelle. I'll catch you next time. See ya.